Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds and then we'll get started. Thank you for being here. All right, so we're going to get started. Thank you and welcome to the information session for the Austin area 0% loan program. My name is Alma Valdez Brown. I am the Vice President of Microlending at LiftFund. With me, I have two of my colleagues who will help me with the Q&A. I have Haley and Caitlin who are here as well, and they'll be again helping me in the background. But if you have any questions, we do have the Q&A section. If you'll put your questions in there, I will repeat the question and then the answer, and we'll save them toward the end unless Haley, you feel like there's something that I need to answer because maybe I'm talking about it on the screen. We can certainly do that. Whatever is easiest and depending on the flow of the conversation. So I'm going to start. I'm hoping that you guys can see my screen. I am sharing a presentation, and this presentation will also be added to our website at liftfund.com. And so we'll have a QR code at the end that you're able to scan with more information about this particular program. So I'm going to start by talking about a little bit about LiftFund. So let me go to that screen. Oh, actually, here I am. So I wanted to, before I talk about LiftFund, I'll just tell you a little bit about me. I work in the headquarters office, so I'm located in San Antonio, Texas. But our office here in San Antonio, covers all of Central Texas, which includes Austin and the surrounding areas. And so I, along with a couple other colleagues that work in this office, are your points of contacts. You will have my contact information at the end, so that if you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I will be happy to answer questions. If I'm unavailable, then I certainly will have one of my colleagues to help answer questions. My former role here at LiftFund was business development officer, which meant that I was more on the lending side, actually working with business owners who were looking for access to capital for their small business. And I have been with LiftFund for 18 years. So about LiftFund. LiftFund is a community lender. We were established a little over 30 years ago in 1994, and we were established to be a resource to business owners who were starting or growing their business and who needed a lift up for their business. And so we help businesses with access to small business loans. We also offer support services through our Small Business Resource Hub. And so we offer online resources, a lot of classes and workshops. You can see those under the events link under the business support section at our website at liftfund.com. And those are at no charge. So you don't have to be a loan customer to take advantage of those services. We also have free business advising through two of our program managers, and they will help you in any specific subject that you need help with for your small business. As I mentioned, we have been operating since 1994, and so most of our customers are going to be business owners that cannot access to capital through traditional sources like their banks or their credit unions. By the way, we do serve the state of Texas along with the rest of the United States, and we are a micro lender. That means that we're offering small business loans. Typically, those are about 50,000 and below, but we also are an SBA lender, which allows us to make loans up to $350,000. So again, that's 350,000 for SBA loans. And we also have some other loan products that allow us to go a little bit higher than that. So under our small business category, our loans can go up to $500,000. So about the program, the reason that you guys are here to learn about this program. So we have just started this program just recently, and you'll find information on our website. This is a program for Austin area small businesses that are looking for a loan to grow or strengthen their business, and it is a 0% loan. It's an interest-free loan for the life of the loan, and I'll go into the details here. This is the QR code for accessing that particular website on our webpage. It also has a specific link on that webpage that you can apply for. So by applying through that link, it does tag your application that this is the type of loan that you're looking for, which is this Austin area 0% loan program. So a little detail on the program, on the actual loan. These loans can go up to $100,000, and the interest rate is fixed for 0% at 0% for the life of the loan. The maximum term on these loans is 60 months, 60 months. And so if you apply for $100,000, get approved for $100,000, you are at 0% for that 60 months. And that's the maximum term. If you're applying for a smaller loan, let's say $20,000, we probably will lower that term to maybe a 4-year term versus that 5-year. And so we're not going to do anything very short term, like a 6-month term or like 100,000 at 12 months. We certainly don't do that. We want to make sure that the payment is comfortable. But for the entire term, it is a 0% loan. It's not going to change. I also want to add too that there are no prepayment penalties for our loans. So if we give you 60 months to pay the loan back and you choose to pay it off in 36 months or 48 months, you can certainly do that. There is no penalty by doing so. Specifically for region, this particular one is the business has to be located or relocating to these following counties: Travis County, Williamson, Bell, Hayes, McLennan, Bastrop, Caldwell, Gillespie, Lampasas, and Mills County. So what it means by relocating is that your business is located in another county. Let's say you're in Bexar County where our office is right now. And so if you're in Bexar County, but your intention is to grow or move your business to one of these counties, we will need proof of that, a lease agreement. We'll need a lease agreement and or a utility bill or some letter from the landlord that's telling us that the owner of that property, that is telling us that your business is going to be operating out of one of these counties. Now, if you're already located in one of these counties, then you certainly just have to show proof of address. We don't need a lease agreement. And if you're a home-based business, this does allow for based businesses to apply as long as you are in any of these counties. Okay. Now, what can the funds be used for? So it's really any business need. Again, it's for growth, it's for expansion, it's for startup businesses, equipment, machinery, inventory, payroll, any working capital that is related to the business, and even refinancing existing loans if the rates are really high. And so if you're not sure if you have a loan that you feel has a high interest rate, I would invite you to have a conversation with us so that we can let you know if we would consider refinancing that, because this is a business loan and we don't refinance anything that's personal. It does have to be a business related loan or expense. Now, how do you qualify for the loan? You do have to meet our criteria as a lender, and if you're approved, then we would approve you with this 0% special loan program. This is the criteria that we have, and I'm going to cover each of them very briefly. If any of you have any specific questions about your particular situation or your business, I invite you to reach out to us individually so that way we can chat more on one-on-one basis so that we can evaluate and give you some, some advice on whether we feel like you would be a good fit or if you need to work on something. I also want to mention that we do, as part of our mission, want to make sure that the business is unable to secure financing through traditional commercial sources like a bank or a credit union. So I'm going to start with these 5 C's of credit. The first is character. Character is essentially how responsible are you when it comes to debt? We do a credit check. We do check credit on the owner or the owners of the company, and that will help us to determine the amount that you qualify for. And just as a general rule, the better your credit, the more that you can apply for a loan with LiftFund. And if you've had some challenges in the past, that is certainly okay for us. We just want to make sure that you have at least, at minimum, 6 months of positive credit history. So that means that if I've had any issues, any problems paying any of my credit cards or any of my loans or debt, that they're past beyond the 6 months. So we want to make sure that, again, in the last 6 months, you've got positive payment history. That's the minimum that we require. And again, as a general rule, credit history and credit score, the higher, the better. The higher your score, the better the credit history, the more chances you have of applying for a larger loan, and then vice versa for the smaller loans. That's on credit. The second is capacity. It measures your ability to pay the loan back. And so we want to make sure that you as a business owner can afford this new monthly payment for what you're asking for. And we ask for bank statements, and in some cases, we ask for tax returns, one or two, depending on the amount that you're asking for. And so we will measure your income, your expenses, and we look at the personal and the business. Now, if you're a business, there is no business financials to look at. So then we will look strictly at the personal side. And so by measuring your financials and just seeing if you can afford this payment, we then will be able to approve you for whatever your monthly payment is going to be. Let's say that I apply for 100,000, but I don't qualify. In other words, I can't afford that monthly payment. Then LiftFund is going to have a conversation with you to see if maybe a lesser amount, maybe 50,000, because maybe I can afford that payment, will help me and my business with that lesser amount. So we certainly do that. Where I've had some specific questions is that maybe I don't have a bank account that I'm really using, but I have another form of payments that I'm receiving, like maybe Square, or maybe it's not a formal bank, but it's another account that I can track my income, my expenses. We do take that. So keep that in mind. And again, if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to us and we can answer those specific questions. Now, capital is, what is your commitment? What have you invested on your business? And in this case, this is specifically more geared toward startup businesses. When you're a true startup, we want to make sure that you have your own investment and that you have at least 10% of whatever it is that you need to start your business. But if I'm an existing business, more than likely I've already invested into my business. Maybe I've already purchased equipment. Maybe I've already, purchased inventory or a vehicle. Any investments toward my business that I'm already operating does count. And on the opposite end of your startup business, we want you to have that money in an account so that we know that you have your own skin in the game, that you're going to inject this or that into the startup business. Collateral. Collateral is what you own that you're using to secure the loan. We do require collateral for our loans. In some cases, we can be more flexible. And in some cases, we really need to be close to the amount that you're looking for. So an example, if I'm looking for $20,000 and maybe I have a food truck and I own that food truck that I own can be collateral. It's an asset that I own, and I'm going to use it to secure the loan with LiftFund. And so if you're going to buy something with a loan, that can also be used for collateral. Again, here, if you have specific questions, we can answer them one-on-one, or you can put them in the Q&A. With this particular loan program, we do want to be as close to the loan amount as possible. If we have a big gap, then what I mean is if we have a big gap with whatever you're offering for collateral and the value with what you're looking for in the loan, then there is a likelihood that that loan approved amount will be reduced to be closer to the value of the collateral. And then the last is conditions. It's your timing, the timing of the business, how long you've been operating. It's your expertise. What's your experience? How long have you been in business? What's your track record? Or if you're starting, it's what is your experience? how does it relate to the business? So those are the five, what we call the five C's of credit. And this is how we at LiftFund and a lot of lenders measure whether we can consider a loan for you. Now, the application process. I mentioned that QR code at the beginning, and we'll have it again here at the end of the presentation. There is an online application that you would fill out. Typically, it's going to take you 30 minutes to 60 minutes to fill out. You can always save your work, and then you can go back and log in and finish your application at a later time. So it does save your work. After applying, we do recommend that you check your email on a regular basis, because we are emailing you with updates, and we're also emailing you with a list of additional information that we might need. So that's on the next step. We do ask that you have proper documentation ready when you submit your application. Although it is not required, it is recommended that you do upload or connect your bank statements, and that if you have a tax return, that you do upload that last tax return. If you've got your entity formations, like if you're an LLC, and if you've got your articles of formation, attach those. The more information that you can provide to us, the better, so that we have a better understanding when we're first reviewing your application. If you're going to buy something with the loan, then provide us with a purchase order so that we fully understand what you're going to buy with the loan. And again, you don't need this documentation to submit the application, but it does help if you've got this information ahead of time and that you're uploading it into the application. The amount of documentation that we need is dependent on how much you're asking for. So the list is going to be a lot shorter if I'm asking for 10,000, 20,000 versus a loan request for 100,000. I don't need a tax return for anything on the lower end, and I'm going to need one tax return for the 50,000 and above. Now, getting ready to apply, here's tips and some suggestions that we have so that as you're prepared to apply for the loan, it helps you with the application. The first thing we recommend is know your budget. Know how much you're going to ask for and what you're going to use the loan for. There are questions on the application that say, what do you need the loan for? And then over on the right, it's going to ask you what you need the loan for. You could have 3 reasons what you need the loan for. It could be that you need equipment. It could be that you need it for payroll. It could mean that you need it for marketing. And so whatever your particular business needs are, we prefer that you break down on the application what the needs are, so that again, we can better understand your application as we're processing it. The second is knowing your numbers. We do want you to answer those questions on the application. The application will ask for both. On the personal side, what are your numbers? What kind of income is coming into the household? What are your expenses? What are your debt obligations? And on the other side, on the flip side, on the business side, if you're an existing business, what's your average income? And then what are your average expenses? Do you pay rent? You got to put that on there. Do you pay payroll? You're going to put that on there. So anything that's business related on expenses and income, you'll fill out on that section. Now, what happens if I'm a startup and it's asking me for these financials? Then what we ask you to do is put in estimated, what you estimate the income is going to be and what you're estimating of the expenses are going to be. And we will recognize that, because on time in business, it might have 0 months or 1 month that you're a startup. We will know that those are projected income. And then of course, having these documents that I mentioned earlier, your bank statements, your tax returns, collateral information, and then your entity documents, which are the LLC or your assumed name or your corporation documents. That will allow us to understand too who the owners of the company are. And I want to mention that now too, is that we require all owners that have 20% or more ownership in your company to apply for the loan. And so if I have a 50-50 partnership with, let's say, my neighbor, and we own this business together, then we both have to be on the application, because we each own 50-50, and that's more than 20%. So let's say my neighbor only owned 10% of the company and I own 90%, then I would be required to be on the loan, and it would be optional for my neighbor to be on, since they have only 10% ownership. Moving on to the next one. So timeline. Applications are going to be processed in the order they are received. This special loan interest rate, 0%, is available until the funding gets exhausted. So we begin processing these loans as they come in. We request additional information from our borrowers. And when they give us a complete package, then we're able to send it for a decision from our underwriters. And that's when they start using this loan fund on a first come, first served basis. And so it's important that we do process your application and that you do respond to our requests quickly so that we can get you this funding before the funding runs out. It's hard to say when funding will run out because it all depends on how many applications we get, and it also depends on the amount that business owners are requesting. It could be that all our requests are small requests, 20,000 and below, or all our requests are 100. It just changes how long we have this program and the funding availability. So here is the QR code. I'm going to come back to the screen. My contact information is here if you guys want to take a picture of it or maybe jot down my information. My direct line is 210-507-4289. And then my email is avaldez@liftfund.com. And I'm going to go back to the QR code. And this is the QR code that will take you to the application link that is tagged so that you can start the process. So I want to thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go to the Q&A. I see one question there. So the question says, is this program applicable to existing LiftFund clients and are receivables acceptable as collateral? So the answer is yes. If you have an existing loan, we'll have the conversation of whether that application needs to be paid off or we can leave it open and then offer you this one. This is a second option or as the only option. It all depends on the rate that you have, the time that you've been paying on the loan, and what we're using for collateral. So there's a lot of moving pieces here, but yes, certainly we can consider a loan for you, even though you have either an existing balance with LiftFund, or if you've had a loan before with LiftFund and you've closed out your balance and you have no balance, then there's no issues there. You can go ahead and go straight to the application. Yes, accounts receivable can be considered as collateral. We prefer that they're not the only source of collateral, so it depends on how much you're looking for, but that is an option. Thank you for that question. What is the repayment period for the loan? So depends on the loan amount, but the maximum term is 60 months. So we will give you 5 years to pay the loan back maximum. It could be a little bit less for our smaller loans, and there's no prepayment penalty. Now, one question that I get as a follow-up to that question is, when do my payments start? And so after we approve you and you sign your loan documents and you get funded, after that day, your payment will start 45 days from the signing of the loan document. So there's no deferred payments. It starts 45 days from you taking that loan. And then after that 45th day, it'll be that same day of the month every month. And we do auto draft. Do all business partners need to be US citizens? They do not. And so there's some nuances there. If there is a person who has a visa, we may need to look at what the expiration of the visa is, but if there's no visa and if it's, let's say, a permanent resident, then it's not an issue. We can certainly lend to borrowers who are US citizens or visa holders or the legal permanent resident. Now, we do have some folks that are business owners that don't have a social security number, but have an I-10. And in that case, I don't believe that we can do loans to I-10 borrowers. And I can double check that. If the person that asked that question was asking specifically about the I-10, let me put my email on here. Send me an email and I will find out. But in other programs that we've done similar to these, The funder doesn't allow it, but I can certainly ask. There is, I'm moving on to the next question. Is there a minimum payment? There is no minimum payment because everyone's loan request is going to be different. So my minimum monthly payment is going to be different if I ask for $10,000 versus if I ask for $50,000 or $75,000. So it just kind of depends on what the loan request is. Any other question?
Thank you, Alma. This is going great. I invite anyone who also joined the webinar about halfway through. We can jump back to another slide to answer a question if you missed it, as well as we
Yeah,
are recording this session that we'll have available on our website later.
yeah, we'll give it a few more minutes to see if somebody has any questions. I'll go back to the funds can be used for. I get
Mhm.
asked that a lot too. So really any business related expense that you might have, if it's something outside of this, then as long as it's business related, I would still just run it by us just to make sure. Um, let's see. Do we have a question? We do.
We
Okay, so
do.
for special cases or follow-ups, can we meet down in San Antonio? We can. If you send me an email, I can send you a link to my calendar and we can meet on Zoom or we can meet on Teams. That's the one that we use. If you prefer virtual, but certainly send me an email and I'll go back to my contact screen so that way this person can send me an email and yeah. Virtual or in person?
That's a good question. I think you mentioned this earlier, but for anyone who just joined halfway through, we do not have a physical location in Austin, but we still service this market. And like Alma said, she has her full calendar open that you can schedule a time to meet with her virtually.
And we have a computer at the office here in San Antonio. So if we have an applicant that is just having trouble with the application, we can help. We can help. We can sit right with you and go through the application if needed. If you need something scanned, you can bring items here and we can scan them for you. But virtual would be ideal so that you wouldn't have to drive to San Antonio, but come visit me. I welcome visitors.
I think we'll wait just a few more minutes for any
Mhm.
last questions. But again, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Alma. She is ready to answer any and all questions that you may have about financing for your business, not just on this program, but any programs regarding LiftFund, any workshops or business support that you may need. We are a resource hub for entrepreneurs. Okay, it is 1:30. I don't see any more questions. I think we can wrap it up. Thank you so much, Alma. I'll let you close it out.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here, for wanting to learn about this Austin area 0% loan program. We're excited to have this program. Please share it if you know other business owners that are in the areas that we can offer this loan program to. We'd love to chat with you all, and we're here if you have any questions. And we look forward to working with you all. Thank you very much.